A lot of names that names and faces that I recognize. So thank you. Those of you that are members of our group, please give us a wave. Nice to have you, Carmen Perry. Hi, she's one of our newest members up in San Francisco. And we also just highlighted her on our LinkedIn page. So if you haven't had a chance to see what Carmen is doing up there in the San Francisco area, then check it out. Just a few little items today before we begin. We are recording this, so please make sure that you're muted. This will be uploaded on our YouTube channel and everyone will get a recording of this. I'll be watching the chat box and the Q&A box, so please hold any comments that you have, questions, or you can put them in the box and we'll make sure that everyone gets addressed at the end. So if you have been on our national presentations before, a face that you see a lot is Ronnie Genzer. She is from our Atlanta chapter and she will be doing the introduction of the speaker today. So I am going to turn this over to Ronnie. Thanks, Ronnie.
Yeah, thanks so much, Tara. Junko Rivka Horvath, a certified financial transitionist, certified financial planner, wealth manager, speaker, and author of the book, Women in Financial Transition, is the go-to expert on the topic of helping people in financial transitions. She teaches people how to successfully navigate, excuse me, through major life transitions. Her life's goal is to empower people with the financial confidence and resources they need to take control of their money and wealth. Junko is an 8-time recipient of the 5-Star Wealth Manager Award, including a 2020, which is given to the top 3% of wealth managers in Atlanta, of the approximately 10,000 financial advisors in Metro Atlanta. Approximately 10,000 financial advisors in Metro Atlanta, only 56 have won more than 8 years. Junko being one of them. Junko has also been featured in Fortune magazine in Women in Wealth section, as well as Forbes. Whoops, sorry. Forgot to mute. I apologize.
Call from 404-994-5701.
Sorry, I don't know how to stop this in the middle. Won't let me mute.
You've reached the desk of Ryan.
Thanks, that I did. Sorry, I should have done that before. I apologize. Let me start over. Junko has been featured in Fortune magazine and Women in the Wealth section, as well as Forbes, the Wall Street Journal Online, CNBC, USA Today, Atlanta Magazine, Atlanta Business Radio, Atlanta Jewish Times, and many more. Junko lives in Atlanta with her husband and her mother, and who she brought from Japan in 2014 with her father, who rests in peace in heaven. She has 2 grown daughters, Dr. Yael and Adina, and their families in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Silver Spring, Maryland. In her spare time, she takes voice lessons for her charity concert and enjoys yoga, reading, and cooking. Again, I apologize for not hitting the mute button. We're all human. Sorry.
Thank you, Ronnie. Let me ask you a question. Do you know of anyone who is currently going through some kind of financial transitions, such as getting divorced, getting inheritance, and retiring after working whole adult life, or losing a spouse, or selling their successful business? What I mean by that is that it could be you, it could be your mom, it could be your uncle, aunt, and it could be your best friend, someone you know. Whoever the person in a transition, I'm passionate about helping them successfully navigate it. And let me tell you why. And let me share my screen. Hold on. See, second. Can you see my screen? Can you hear me? Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, great. And it's not moving. I'm sorry. And okay. I grew up in Japan in a traditional Japanese home. My father was a corporate executive and my mom was a homemaker. And my father was not a controlling person at all, but he never disclosed to my mom how much he was making and how much we had in savings. Instead, my mom was given allowance every month and to buy things that which was necessary to the household. And sometimes as a child, I was worried and I asked my mom, no, Mom, what's going to happen if my father died? And my mother's answer was always, don't be silly, he won't die. And that was always she told me. And while she wasn't worried that if something like that happened to my father, that could leave us penniless. But she did say, Junko, I want to leave home. See, my father was the oldest child, and as a custom, he was expected to live with his parents and take care of them. And at that time, my grandma. So because of that, we lived with my grandma, my father's mother, and the relationship between my mom and my grandma was really bad. So that made my mom very unhappy and she was frustrated. And that's when she told me that she wanted to leave home. So I always told her, Mom, how could you leave home? You don't even have money. You don't know where the money is. You know, you don't know how much my father is earning and where he's investing. So how could you leave? And one day, you know, my mom never really shared with me about her childhood. But one day she told me, she said, Junko, my mom died when I was a year and a half old. And my father died when I was 11. I didn't have the chance to get an education. Junko, study hard and education will open up doors for you. Don't be like me. So I took her word to heart and I decided to come to the United States and get an MBA and become an independent woman. Then fast forward, after I became a financial advisor, I was actually shocked when I learned that many American women who are well educated, they also did not have a confidence in their financial situation because they let their spouses handle their financial decisions. And I think that this is how it happens usually. You know, that as a, husband and wife, as a couple, as a spouses, they try to do things equally, child raising and, making money or investing. We ideally want to do everything together, but in reality, especially if you have children, and I have 2 kids, life gets so busy. And it's the child raising many times, not all the times, but many times fall into the women's shoulder, so that women get busy with children and cooking and homework, and then at the end of the day, it's like 10 o'clock at night, right? And if in that household, if the other spouse is handling more of the finances at 10 o'clock at night, where do you have the energy left? Like, honey, let's talk about investing. How are we doing in investment? What kind of returns are we getting? You don't want to talk about it. You are exhausted, right? So that's how, even though women are very bright and educated, if they don't handle those things, they don't know where the money coming from and where money goes. So then eventually, they kind of lose their confidence. and they let other spouses handle all the decisions. So as a financial advisor, when I realized that, I decided that my mission as an advisor is to give them the confidence and education that they can manage or co-manage their own household finances. And then 2019, November of 2019, I decided to write my first book, Women in Financial Transition, because I was really frustrated. Many people come to my office, and then they cry and they talk about all the mistakes they made, and then they ask me for help. But at that time, after making a big mistakes or irreversible mistakes, there aren't so much I can do as a financial planner. So I felt like powerless. I'm here to help, but I can't help them because they went too far. There's not so much I can do to help. So I started to think that how could I avoid that before that kind of big mistake happens? How could I see them before and then stop them making the mistakes? So I decided that I interview many people who went through the financial transitions. And then I started to go out, and I was lucky. I interviewed in person over 50 people. And the people I interviewed, they are like the actual people who went through those financial transitions. But I didn't just want to stop there. So I also interviewed the professionals. And for example, like in chapter 1, divorce chapter, I interviewed the people who went through the divorce, several people. Then after that, I interviewed like many divorce lawyers and a child psychologist and a forensic accountant and a CPA who specializing in helping those people going through the divorce. And in other chapters, I interviewed like estate planning lawyers or elder law lawyers or, the Medicare specialist. So because by doing that, you can learn all the things from my book. And if you are thinking about, you are pondering like, in the near future, I want to get divorced, or in the near future, I want to sell my business, but not yet. In that stage, who want to go to a lawyer and pay like $500, $600 an hour, right? And usually they ask for the retainer, like $5,000. So you are just considering, but you are not at the stage that you take the action. So, but you have those questions. So instead of going to the professionals, you can read my book and you can learn all the mistakes that people made or success people did, or some experience from the professionals who helped those people. So my book, Women in Financial Transition, has 5 chapters. The chapter 1, divorce, chapter 2, inheritance, chapter 3, retirement, chapter 4, widowhood, and chapter 5, selling their business. So you can learn all the things, and you may be finding yourself like, oh my gosh, that's like me. Or, oh my gosh, this is exactly what happened to my mom. So you can relate to yourself and learn from that. And at the beginning of the book, I described 4 stages of transition. So in any stage, in any stage of the transition, anything you go through in a transition, there are usually 3 or 4 stages. And the 20th century's famous psychologist, William Bridges, he said, in life, there are 3 stages of transition, starting from ending and a passage and a new normal. And I am a certified financial planner and also certified financial transitionist. At the Financial Transitionist Institute, we added the one more stage before the ending, anticipation stage. So in life transitions, it's starting from anticipation, ending, passage, and the new normal. And sometimes there's no anticipation stage. Like for example, if somebody, had a heart attack and gone in the next second, there is no anticipation stage. And if the spouse declared today, like, he or she's leaving from home, there is no anticipation stage, but many times there is an anticipation stage. And usually this is how it works. So the elderly couple and the spouse, the husband spouse, has been coughing for a month, and the cough doesn't go away. So other spouse say, honey, you've been coughing for a month. Maybe you may have a pneumonia. Let's go to doctor and check it out just to make sure. So they go to the doctor, and the doctor say that, oh, you are dehydrated. So you may want to go to a hospital and then get x-ray, chest x-ray. So they go there, and the doctor at the hospital say, like, oh, we see something in the chest x-ray, and it could be something else. We don't know until we do further testing. But it may not be too good, doctor said. At that point, the other spouse anticipate, okay, my life may not be the same. My life may change in the near future. That is the anticipation stage. And then 2 weeks later, the husband is gone. And that's what exactly happened to my father-in-law 3 years ago. So now, how do you know it's changed from anticipation stage to ending? Because the life will never be the same as before. That's when you know you are in an ending stage. And at the ending stage, that does not necessarily mean financial transitions had happened. It may not have happened yet, but from there, you have to do all kind of transactions, the changing the assets and ownership. And then now your, siblings come in and the friends come in, start giving you all kind of advice. And then after those, transactions finish, you go into the passage stage. And usually people stay in a passage the longest. And then passage, you can't think clearly, and your brain is foggy. And then you don't know who you are. Many times you kind of lost the identity, because after married for somebody for 30, 40 years and being the Mrs. So-and-so, for example, then suddenly become single again. It's difficult to adjust yourself. Who am I? I didn't experience that. And last time I experienced being a single was when I was like very young. So they try to search themselves. And then meanwhile, people around you come to you and say, come on, it has been 3 years, you've been mourning, and stop it. Life moves on. You gotta get going. But you still can't find yourself. You still don't feel comfortable or confident, with yourself. And then as a certified financial transitionist, our job is to take people from that stage to new normal. And how do we know that the person went to new normal stage? And because usually they feel more confident and comfortable with uncomfortableness, with the loneliness. and then they accept it and they are rejuvenated and they have a confidence and they feel like, oh, I can do those things by myself. It's not too bad, even though I miss him, I miss her, I'm fine now. And then when they start talking about their past with a smile, and that's when we know they went to a new normal stage. So it's everybody goes through these 3 or 4 stages of transition. So I think it's important to know that if you are like in ending stage and you feel like, I'll never get out of here, but there is always new normal. So just please remember that. And then another thing I want to share with you is that at the end of every chapter, I'm offering the Your Money Story Worksheet. And what it is, so Your Money Story Worksheet. And your money story began before you went into kindergarten. And it still probably influences your money behaviors, your decisions about money, and expectations about money to this day. And it was formulated from direct and indirect messages from your parents, your uncle, your aunt, and your friends, or like teachers and people from your churches and synagogues, and even from the media, whether you are aware of it or not. And then that's helped formulate it, like how your parents, your family talked about money and how they got it and how they spent it. And all of these messages that created your money stories, basically the mindset about the money when you are a child. And then that basically formulated your money story, which is literally the narrative of the place of money when you are growing up. And then the money story, whether it's maybe still influencing you or not, and this money story worksheet that is going to examine your past and a current money story and whether or not they are positively influencing your behaviors. And if your money story and the relationship with money can use some improvement, this is a great exercise because you cannot create a great future money story unless you go through your past money story and a current money story and being honest to yourself and reflect what you can do to improve. And if you are growth-minded and open-minded, you can do that. And no matter what how your money story was bad in the past or now, you can create a great relationship with your money and your future money story. So it's, to get this worksheet, you can go to www.chooseyourmoneystory.com. Again, www.chooseyourmoneystory.com. So if you go there, you put your name and email address, then you can download this money story worksheet. And once you print it out, I want you to go alone by yourself to somewhere you like a park or a lake or somewhere, and spend some time and talk to yourself, looking at your past and think about how you can improve your relationship with money. And you don't have to make a big change. And I'm just let's use some example. If you go to work every day and on the way to work, you see Starbucks every day. and you go there every day and you spend, you know, $4 or $5 to buy cookies and a frappuccino, and you do that every day. And then you also do is say you have to have, let's say every season, you have to have the every color of new shoes, you know, white, black, beige, and brown. You know, you have to have that. Or each time some, you know, new makeup product comes up, you gotta spend money. But so you can choose what you can change in your life, how you can improve your money story. So let's say, okay, Starbucks, maybe I can try to give up, you know, so $200 a month. And then let's say you are 40 years old, you plan to work until 70. So next 30 years, instead of spending $200 a month at the Starbucks, you know, first of all, let's calculate how much, you know, spending $200 a month at the Starbucks for next 30 years, how much is it? I calculated, it's like $114,000. Okay, and then you say, okay, I want to quit it and I want to save the money. So you start to save, instead of drinking the coffee, you started to save $200 a month. That's $2,400 a year. And you start putting that in an automatic investment. And then next 30 years, you earn 8%. You're going to get like $271,000. So how do you feel if you are, imagine you are 70 years old now, and since 40, you quit going to Starbucks and other things, you know, you can't give up, but Starbucks, you could give up, and you started to save money. You have an extra $271,000 in your investment account. How do you feel about that? So it's a small change, but consistent change that could make a big difference. So I want you to try this money story worksheet and try to look at yourself and see really who you are, because it's said many times, we don't know who we are. We don't think about that enough. So this exercise, I hope it's going to be a growth mindset exercise. And then I brought two guests for you today, and they are the members of your organization, and also they appear in my book. And my two guests are Helen Sher Diamond and Ronnie Genser. And Helen, I interviewed Helen, and Helen appears in a chapter 2, Inheritance chapter, and she shares with you for a few minutes, you know, what she learned from inheriting money from her parents, and what you know, what kind of message she wants to give. And Ronnie Genser, Ronnie appears on chapter 4, Widowhood chapter in my book. So she's going to share with you, you know, her experience going through the widowhood, becoming a widow, and give some advice. So she's gonna also speak 2 or 3 minutes. And so that's my speech. And if you want to share my message, you know, the importance of handling your own financial situations, and if you want to spread the word, please let me know. And this is my email address. And if you belong to other organizations, and if you want to bring me as a guest speaker to spread the word, and I will, you know, please email me, and I'm going to mail you my book, so that before you recommend my speech, you can talk about that. So thank you so much for listening. And I'm going to answer the, you know, some of the questions you may have, but here is Helen, so she can share her experience with you.
Thank you so much, Junko, and thank you, Tara and Jessica with National Aging in Place Council. I'm very honored to be in the book. I made my mistakes. I had young parents that died within 3 years of each other. My dad from a second major heart attack, my mother 3 years later from breast cancer complications, and I was 28 years old when I had to deal with both parents being gone, investing money from their insurance policies, and knowing what to do as a newlywed. I had just been married for 6 months when I'd lost my parents, and we invested in a house. I never thought to put aside any of the monies that I had invested from the insurance policies from my parents. And I had no regrets about buying a house, but later on we bought a business, we invested in that business, and the business did not do well. The lessons that I learned that Junko is trying to share with the young people of today, your children, your grandchildren, your nieces, your nephews, should be think about putting aside some of the funds for yourself in your own account. Us women are so silly sometimes in marriage that we don't think of our own future, and gosh forbid we do lose our spouse. So as an inherited young lady, I was very proud that my parents had all of their legal documents in place, had done all their funeral arrangements, made it very easy for my brother, who was 3 years younger than me. He was 25 when he lost our parents. And I learned a lot of lessons from a lot of different people. And thank you, Junko, for trying to educate and make us think ahead of time and plan ahead of time and not be in crisis mode no matter what transition we're in. I do also want to share that Junko is very well known here in Atlanta, and that all of us 50 women were here in Atlanta. We know many of each other, and I'm just so honored to be able to share my story. Thank you, Junko.
Thank you so much, Helen. And then, Ronnie, you want to share your story?
Sure. I'm happy to do that. First, though, I realize that people may not know who I am. So I want to say that I have a business called Bereavement Navigators that resulted a couple of years after the death of my husband, where I work with widows, widowers, and adult children on all the personal and practical things after the death of a loved one. There's also a second part of it, but we're talking today probably about widowhood and after a death. So the before death part, I'm not going to talk about, but you need that introduction to understand what I'm about to say. So I'm in chapter 4, pages 114 to 117, so you can read all the details. I only have a couple minutes. But the selected topics I chose to address today are the biggest question widows think about or ask, I find, after the loss of a spouse or a partner is, who will take care of me financially, which deals with what Junko's writing about, physically if she gets sick, or emotionally. So something to think about. And another topic is all widow. I have found that not just by reading, but by experience with me, my clients, other people I know, all widows are different and have different concerns, including financial, based on their age at the time of widowhood, meaning the 20s, 30s versus 50s, 60s versus 80s, 90s. Those are 3 different stages and 3 different we'll have 3 different kinds of perhaps financial needs. Some may not have any financial needs given their resources. Their financial concerns, especially if they're younger, are not only about paying the bills, but enjoying life for many years, especially because if they're very young, they may not qualify for things like Social Security, which could really take over. If they're older, the issue really is older, meaning on the opposite end of the scale, the 80s, 90s, is paying for what I call good care, which is really gets more and more expensive as life goes on, especially if you're sick for more than what the industry quotes as the average number of 4 years that one will live if one has say dementia or another long-term illness, especially if one lives into their 90s. So we're seeing more and more people with significant illnesses needing care for longer periods of time. A couple more bullet points. There's a I shared an example of a client's unique and very different problem with dealing with Social Security. So many people think the only issue is Social Security disability. This client had a very different kind of problem, and helping them find an attorney who will take their case on this very specific issue was pretty difficult because almost nobody in the Atlanta area does that. Another topic that I discussed was not realizing if you lose a spouse, you now only get one Social Security amount each month, yours or your spouse or your spouse's, and deciding which one to take and when to take that Social Security can be an incredibly complex issue. I just ran the numbers time and time again and things like that as to, should I take less now? Should I wait even more than I really wanted to wait, or what should I do? The last two topics I've selected was the role about buying term or whole life insurance, what that role is and how it can play out when one becomes widowed. And again, depending upon your age, the policies, all this kind of thing. And lastly, the last couple of paragraphs in my section conclude with a description in more depth of what my situation was, so that you have some background. So thanks very much. And oh, by the way, we were in our early 60s. My husband had a massive heart attack, 2 operations, and was on a machine for which I made the decision to take him off after when they told me there was no more they could do. So
That's wonderful. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah,
it-
well, thank you, ladies, for sharing. I just wanted to open it up a little bit. If anyone had questions, I'll let you put those in the chat box right now. I know we also have some people on the call, Cindy Shea, who works with finances and women, and Carmen, I know, and Linda Lewis. I don't know if, while we're waiting for questions to come in, if any of you have anything, comments to add, things that you see a lot from other women. And I'll take a look at the chat box.
Sure, I'm happy to say I think all of this was wonderful information. I do reverse mortgages, and I certainly do run into women who are widows who had no idea what was going on with finances and didn't know to ask, or their husband didn't allow them to do that. And I think that National Aging in Place, all of the members, you folks are such trusted resources to help in so many different areas. It's a wonderful organization, and I applaud everything you did and appreciate the talk today.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I want to know, if you could share with me your money stories, that or the members, if you feel comfortable to share your money stories.
I am so new here, so I guess I'm still grasping the full potential of what this group can do. So this is my first time attending anything, and I was really impressed. I kind of feel like I straddle both of the fences with Ronnie and Helen. I am a young widow of 4 years, and it's something that, he had a massive heart attack on the side of a freeway. I had no idea this had happened. And so we never really planned because we had just had our kids, and we were, he actually had a heart issue, so he didn't qualify for life insurance. And it was so funny when he took out a life insurance policy on me, and my mom's like, he's going to kill you. I'm like, no, he's not. But, there's a mindset of generations of when you do these things that, there's reasons. And really, we were just like, I was the only one we could get life insurance on. But after he died, I was so just stressed out that I funneled my grief into opening my own business, which, it was a wine bar. And in California, we closed those last year. So I feel like I went through the widow thing and the business thing. And for me, as a single parent and as a woman in business who I do fine, I have a career. I think that I have a huge social circle of business women that fall into the group Junko was speaking about. They're not preparing. They don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. And I'm very much interested in your book because I have like surgeons, I have like dentist friends that they just are not thinking about their future. And I guess I didn't really understand coming to this what to expect, and I'm really grateful I did. This is a lot of good information. So thank you, ladies, for sharing, and I'm so glad to be part of this group.
Thank you, Carmen. That's wonderful to
Hi.
hear that.
Hi, I'd like to share. I come from a little bit different perspective in that I'm a nurse by trade, and I actually help people with life care plans. So we look at the whole picture, the financial as well as, you know, the healthcare issues that can arise with aging. And so my recommendation, in addition to all your wonderful tips and based on all of your experiences, is to, no matter how young you are, is start an estate plan and get with an attorney that specializes with that and look at the whole picture for, you know, how you're going to age and what kind of care are you going to want as you age, and to have the money in place. Because everybody thinks, nobody likes to think about getting sick, getting older and dying, right? And it's unfortunate when people do die suddenly, because people haven't really prepared, especially with their grieving. But most of us don't die that way. Most of us end up, you know, just slowly losing our oomph, so to speak, right? Inch by inch. And so we need to plan for that and plan for our care.
Exactly. Yeah. I have a young junior partner, Chris. He's 30 years old, and he does crazy things like he ran a 50 miles race, and in soon, like few weeks, he's gonna run 100 miles, and he just came back from like Grand Canyon. So before he went there, I said, Chris, you need a will, I said. And then he said, why? I'm not married and I'm single. Why do I need a will? He said. Then I said, because you do all the crazy things, you may die, number one. And also, you may be under the coma. Whatever you do, it's kind of dangerous. If you fall down, like, so many feet, and you may get into the coma. Do you give that responsibility to your mom, that she has to make a decision for you, that, whether, let's say that you wanted to be killed at the situation, and, but your mom doesn't want to do that. She doesn't want to make that decision. So she just put you into the machine and plug all the things, and then you live like like that way for the next 10 years, 20 years. Is that what you're going to do? That she has to make that kind of decision for you? I said. Then he said, I got your point. And then, but he still didn't want to spend the money for the lawyer. I said, at least could you go to like a legal Zoom or something and create the, wills and, healthcare, living will, the living attorney thing.
Well,
And
power of attorney.
power of attorney, yeah, and healthcare directives. So he did, and before he went to the trip, he gave all of his file, and he said, Junko, you are the you are the successor executive to my mom. So if something happened to me, please, keep this. And so then he said, at that moment, he felt like he became a real adult. He just turned 30. And so that kind of little thing, I think it's very important. Unless I pushed him, he wouldn't have even thought about that. So
and you have to pick wisely who your power of attorney is going to be, both for financial and health.
Yeah.
And it may not be your mom, or it may not be one of your children. They may not be the best or the strongest to support what your wishes are. So you really need to think hard about who the best people are to perform those roles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Any other questions or anything that you want to share about your story, or, and a comment? Thank you for sharing your story. It's, yeah, you never know, just because you're young, And Helen, you want something?
I do. I just want to share that the resources that are out there, especially through National Aging in Place Council, are so important in all the different industries, not just the estate planners, the estate lawyers, but the idea of rehab, physical therapy. We're seeing a lot of people falling and they don't have the right documents in place or the right people. And remember, people, you always need alternatives. I'm a community outreach director for 2 funeral homes, and I also believe in planning ahead because at 28 years old, you know, I would never have thought my parents wouldn't be there the rest of my life. And they did me justice by doing things ahead of time and not having that crisis mode. So I try to help people with avoiding crisis mode.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Well, this has been great. I know that Junko has offered to give free consultations to anyone. If you want to speak with her privately offline, feel free to reach out. I know you had the slide up, but if you want to put your contact information again in the chat box and
Yeah.
make sure everyone has that. And if any of you want to share your information, please add it in there and be sure to save the chat before you exit and you'll have everyone's information. So thanks for joining us today. I just wanted to give a quick little mention on an event we have next week on Monday. It is our next Hidden Gems of Aging series. This is going to be a really good one hosted by Peter Klampkin. He works for AAG over in the reverse mortgage world, but he is going to be moderating a session, the Hidden Gem session, and we're focusing this month on silverbills.com, which helps seniors pay their bills. And they actually have a strategic partnership with the New York Department of Aging, I believe, where they handle people's expenses for them to make sure that no one's getting fraudulently charged or their power's always on. It's a great service. And there's also the other organization is joinpapa.com. And that's kind of caregiving on demand through an app. So if you need a ride to a doctor, or if you need help putting up a curtain, or if you actually need someone to help you cook dinner just one night a week because your normal caregiver can't come, you can order it on their app. It's kind of amazing. And they have a Papa family that they connect you with. So I'm really excited to hear about that if you haven't registered. And we still have some spots left. So hop on over there and do that. And unless we have any other comments or questions, I'm just going to say thank you to everyone for coming. It's always nice to see you. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you very
You too.
much.